Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast. TRAP, TRAP. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the TRAP team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of TRAP.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappers. Welcome back to what many people are calling the second attempt to record episode 54 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP TRAP. My name is Lick Ninken. Joining me as ever in the digital studio of doom are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse. Carl Delavocci, the voice Widger, Alan, the storyteller Smith, and Andy Ultra Hart. Now, gentlemen, we have a show packed full of absolutely nothing. So let's start packing it yet again with some high energy review reads read out by my good friend, Mr. Andrew Hart, who didn't pause, stutter or stumble first time round.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. Okay, my first review is from Tiny Wings, entitled Must for Financial Planners 5 stars. Great podcast, guys, and the episode 48 section on how pension members, advisors and clients are blindsided by the wording given and the adherence to the answers given by the tick box methodology of a risk profiling questionnaire. Final review is from Brooks Jr., entitled A Positive for the Profession 5 stars. Great show, gents. Having graduated via one of the well-known advisor academies, I started my advice journey in September 2021. I've always heavily focused on understanding the hopes and dreams of my clients, but whilst learning on the job, there have been many times where I've second-guessed myself, so this podcast has been absolute gold for me and ticks every box. Given that advisors and retail investors listen to this, I think having these guys discuss topics openly with balanced views is a real positive for the profession. Thanks for the commitment to delivering high-quality, high-value content for us all to consume. Keep it up, Dean Brooks. Back to you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Trappist, for those lovely reviews. They give us a shot in the arm, and we love them to keep coming in. And do keep sending them in, because I think it does alter the algorithm in the interweb or something, and it just makes our podcast more high-profile and more visible to people searching for quality financial services-related content by practicing real financial advisors. Okay, let's put a topical timestamp on this episode with some topical titbits. Starting off with some housekeeping, dull, but I need to tell the Trappists this. So the so-called show notes, we put out this great content with loads of links each episode. Too many links, I think, for many podcast apps, which truncate the links. So they haven't always been propagating through to all the various podcast apps. So now, in place of that, we have one link in the so-called show notes, which links to a Google document, which will have all the so-called show notes and all the links from episode 53 onwards. And it'll be a working live document. Over time, it'll become like a repository, a Wikipedia of the very best of financial services. I think it will supplant the Magna Carta in terms of its importance. So that's just to let you know. And it makes also makes the podcast look a bit neater on your phone. It doesn't ramble on. You haven't got to scroll down. Okay. Andrew, you've been to a former colony. How did it go?
Very well, Nicholas, very well. So last Tuesday, I hosted our 4th live event in Cape Town, South Africa, 6th event in total in the Alan Gray V&A waterfront, whom both of Nick, or Lick, and Storyteller have been to. Carl is yet to grace the shores of Cape Town for Hum SA. So it was a wonderful day.
I've just to clarify, I've yet to be invited.
Yet to be invited, yeah, sure.
Continue,
sure.
Andrew.
There's a long list, my friend. All the speakers brought their A game. There's about 250 people in the arena. So far, the score out of 10 is 9.03, which might be the highest we've ever had at Hum. Final couple of points. The organisers who helped me put it on are Rob McDonald, who quite a few of you have met, Pierre Talliard and Carrie Bendel. And a massive thanks to 2 UK financial advisors who are also Trappist, Mr. Warren Shute and Mr. Paul Cluworth. They flew out with me. So I stayed with them for 4 or 5 days. So they had a strong old dose of me, and I had a strong old dose of them. But it was all good spirits, all panned out well, nothing to complain. We had a final day in the vineyards. That was amazing. But my final thank you is obviously to the delegates, the people that turned up. So we couldn't put on the show without you. The people make the party. And onwards to Hum Cape Town 2025. Back to you, Nicholas.
Brilliant. Well done, fella. And I'm glad it was such a success. And it must be the season for conferences. We've got the Sissy conference coming up in October in Manchester, Old Trafford. And Nick Murray has just had his annual shindig in Manhattan. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to a good close personal friend of the show, Ian Farrer, who went to the Nick Murray conference. And while he was there, just having breakfast, first thing in the morning. Yes, I'm sorry about the close personal friend Bell taking forever. The media board is playing up, dear Trappist, so bear with me. Ian Farrer having breakfast, and an American guy comes over to him and says, "Are you one of these Trapped? Are you familiar with Trapped? Are you involved with Trapped?" And there you go. We have a Trappist in America. The guy's name is Phil Stats. He wanted to shout out. He's the founder and an advisor at Insight Advisor Group, which looks like quite a decent setup. So, Phil, thank you for your little video message, giving us a fillip from Manhattan. Great to see that you're picking up this tripe that we put out there. Please do spread the word with your fellow Americans and the good people of Illinois and get Trap going stateside. So there you go, Phil Stats. And Ian Farrer, I hope you had a nice time.
While we're on that, just to correct one thing, it was brilliant to get a message, and thanks to Ian for actually recording it on his phone, this video message, and sending it around to us. Just to be a little bit pedantic, he's a Trappist. He referred to fellow Trap listeners as trappers. Trappers is a different thing altogether. This is the Trappist community, a bit like the Trappist monks.
Technical Terry.
One other quick thing, whilst we're on that.
It was a private video. I don't think we need to reference the fact that he made a mistake in recording with it.
No, but just clarifying, it's Trappist and Trappers. But I had sent it to you as well. There was a message from a lady advisor in Singapore. She's coming back to the UK soon, and she as well was explaining that she was an avid listener. So it's great that we are going international now with carrying this message around the world. So thank you for everyone.
I bumped into, final point, I bumped into a load of Trappists in the Hum Cape Town event. There was one guy who listens to Trap. He's been in the business only a year. He's taken over his dad's business. I sent you boys a video. And then he obviously rocked up live in person. So it's amazing how these things work. Us speaking in our empty rooms being beamed around the world, and then real life stuff happens as a result of it. So it is absolutely amazing. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that.
Very good. Very, very good. Lovely. Okay, let's get on to some nitty gritty and storyteller. This, wow, go on, enliven us. Cash management platforms.
Sorry, Nick, I'm just before storyteller. Sorry, it's following on.
You are. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, it's following on the Nick Murray scene.
Absolute shambles.
Jesus,
absolute shambles.
Go on, Andrew.
Shambles.
There's a link in the so-called show notes.
Absolute shambles.
Super link. It's a Nick Murray podcast on YouTube. Nick Murray does few and far between of these types of interviews, but he's on with a guy called David Banson, who's a Nick Murray super fan.
Norga's Bank.
But
never get Norga's Bank.
He sort of bangs on for about 15 minutes before the interview gets started, which is somewhat interesting, but I'd probably nudge on from that. So there's a link in the so-called show notes. It's entitled Trust Comes from Trustworthiness. David Banson and Nick Murray. Back to you, storyteller.
Yeah, I watched that. It's a great... I love the way Nick Murray communicates. It's just slow, paced, intentional, quite quiet, really.
Did he say anything new?
He did. Well, it was new to me anyway. But you should watch it or listen to it. He did say something new, which was around the kind of the idea of prospecting for new clients. He had, I think I've read that before somewhere, but I've forgotten about it. About this kind of
probably in one of his newsletters
formula that he's got. It's always useful to be reminded again, Mr. Widger, Mr. Know-All from Limerick.
I'm being facetious.
Talking
just on conferences before you jump on, like you had the different things work for different people. I guess we saw the pictures from the Nick Murray conference, which, as you said, Andy, before, is as bland as you can get it. At the same time, the Future Proof conference was happening in Huntington's Beach, I think, and it looked pretty amazing, to be fair. So yeah, it's
maybe we're going to get a group of us to go to Future Proof next year. A few people have
that would be good.
Mentioned an interest, so I think
up for
if
going
the timings
next year.
are right, we could get probably about 10 of us out there. So watch this space, Trappists. We might have an announcement.
Exactly. Sorry for the interruption, Alan. Continue, my friend.
Look forward to it. Trap Tour 25. It's got a good ring to it. Right,
we're 10 minutes in and we're like 4 points down the topical tidbits. Just saying.
I got a message to share with you guys from, I won't mention his name right now, but again, another avid listener asking what our thoughts or views were on these cash management platforms. I think we're all familiar with them. There's a few names that a lot of advisors seem to like and to use. And he was expressing some, I got to put it, concern, maybe. He said he's attempted to do some robust diligence on these trust structures that operate behind the scenes of these platforms. And he said it was always a bit of waffle and flannel. Didn't really get into the heart of the questions he was trying to ascertain. It wasn't 100% clear. And I just thought it was interesting because they do seem to be very popular. I can, fully disclose, we don't use them at our firm. Where cash is required to be held on deposit, we often find it where there's somebody has sold a business and they've got a lot of cash and they've got a big tax bill to pay probably a year away. So it's a year to 18 months of cash deposits. They can't take any risks with it and they'd rather get a return on it. We've always recommended National Savings as being the most secure place, NS&I secure place. It pays over 4% right now. It's as secure as it gets, backed by the UK Treasury, UK government. And when I've looked at some of the rates available as well elsewhere in these cash platforms, once they take their bite of the cherry, I understand also some advisors charge on it as well, 25 basis points or something for accessing it. So net, you're not, I don't think, an awful lot better off than just going to an NS&I type of account. Just wonder what you guys did or used. I don't think you use the cash platforms, certainly talking to UK, Andy. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not going to mention brand names. I did look at a couple of them last year, just sort of kicking the tires very, very loosely. I wasn't totally comfortable with it, with their structure, as you said, but I just also, I don't know, I don't think I want to be involved as a cash manager for my clients. I think there's Google for that. It's just search the rate and over to you. All of a sudden you're straddling this thing. Are you giving advice then or not? Is this a regulated activity in a sense? Because if you're pointing them towards it, there's this thing about giving steers to people, aren't there? We get that. I think we all do it to a degree. You might say, well, if I was in your shoes, I might go with X, Y, Z. But you don't put it in right. You're just talking. I think you could be talking significant sums of money here. And what's the upside if it does go wrong? Nothing at all. And you're going to take 15 basis points, 25 basis points as your agreed fee, if you're taking any fee at all. I kind of walked away from it. So that was my. And I just didn't understand quite how it worked. And I've got a very small brain, so that's probably on me rather than the brands involved. But I didn't just take it any further.
Yeah, I'll just close this up. I'm happy to mention brand names. I think Insignis are the biggest, and Flagstone. Insignis are a name I'm aware of, and Flagstone I believe might be the biggest. Again, I've got that wrong. I don't really know the space well enough. I just want to try and remove extra layers between my clients and their cash. So if I can take a small haircut and get not maybe the best performing rate on the market, but at least they're directly, accessing the financial institution, then I'll sort of take that. I think they are quite convoluted. NS&I, I'm a big fan of. I do have a chunk of cash on Transact platform. They're paying high rates, and I'm just a bit more comfortable with them doing stuff in the background. I don't want there to be a massive blow up with one of these companies, which there may or may not be one day.
Yeah,
the security, I think, of the provider is really, really, really important.
There's lots of layers.
Actually,
there's lots of layers of the onion, and we're as strong as the weakest link. The usual sort of stuff.
Right.
I tread very carefully. My clients pay me to help them avoid this sort of stuff. I'm not saying what advisors are doing using these platforms at the moment is anything untoward, and they've obviously done their own due diligence. But personally, for me, again, it's another layer that I could do without. So I generally don't use them at the moment.
Very diplomatic there, Andrew. Makes sense. The upside to me is potentially is there, but it's marginal, and the downside is catastrophic.
Yes, absolutely.
It's one of these bets that, in my opinion, isn't worth taking. And the same to me goes for cash funds. It's kind of treasury type funds you can buy, where you can
money market funds and stuff. Again, they're a bit sketchy. Yeah,
they're sketchy.
And certainly that's the market you're operating in.
Yeah, 2008,
the market here is different.
No, I'm just talking about the UK market. I don't know the Irish market at all. But in the UK,
the institutional investor can get very low deposit rates here, so it's kind of, we have to be looking at maybe money market funds. Maybe it's looking at buying direct government bonds, that kind of stuff. So it is a thing here. We certainly don't have the perfect solution, but it is something that we're trying to work on here. So it is something we're looking into.
Okay. As you might recall, I think it was episode 53. We were talking about the what if there is around the upcoming budget, and I had a client who needed to get £1 million of readies from their portfolios, and we were deciding which pot to access: pension, GIA, or ISA. I had the meeting with the clients, and I gave them my advice, which for them I think is the best thing is to access their GIA. And the next question they said, well, where do we put this £1 million? And I said, well, between you, me, and the fence post, I would probably just look at this thing called NSNI, because you can put £1 million in their direct saver thing, and it's paying 4%, I think, and it's obviously underwritten by you, me, and Uncle Tom Cobley. It's the one, it won't go bust.
I'm probably going to be slightly out with the numbers, but I remember when I was speaking to the NSNI people, I think a couple can have, if they utilise all the pots, somewhere close to 12 million with NS&I in total. But again, I might be slightly out with the numbers, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm nearly there now, so I've got to look at other providers. Okay.
You and Penny.
Let's now move on to me. Oh, me, I can talk. Okay, very quickly. The state pension is going to go up by 460 quid a year next year to 11,960 quid. Let's call it 12 grand from April 2025. And in this article in Money Marketing, it said that will mean that 340,000 pensioners, that's a significant number, 340,000 pensioners are going to start paying tax for the first time. And a lot of those will be paying tax just through their state pension. They won't have any other income. They'll have state pension plus SERP, so they could be paying. They could be on 12.5, 13 grand of state pension. Andy, your fingers raised.
Do they have the facility via the state pension to take the tax? I don't think they do.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. You can continue with my point if you want to. The state pension is paid gross, of course. It's paid gross. So suddenly a whole cadre of pensioners, most of whom, I'm guessing if state pension is there any income, might not be the most technically enabled people in the world and have never had a government gateway account, will be getting a gross income on which tax is due. So it'll be interesting to see how that is going to pan out, because it could be a right shit show. Obviously, we've got budgets coming up, and maybe they'll bring in a special allowance for who knows what they're going to do. But it's the first time when people just on a state pension, an awful lot of them, are going to be liable for tax, and they won't even know it. There you go. Okay. Any thoughts on that? No. Okay. Wodge, the Apple tax debacle.
Yeah. You couldn't make this up, right? So this is a case that's going on for a decade, where the EU were bringing Apple to court to say that you owe Ireland tax. Ireland, we're talking about 14 billion euros in tax. And Ireland going, no, they don't. So Ireland were siding with Apple. The EU have said, no, we've decided once and for all, you got to pay it. So now Ireland have to take the money that they didn't want from Apple. So look, much bigger,
brilliant story.
Much bigger picture here is what happens to Ireland and the cozy corporation tax we've done for all these massive multinationals who run their profits through Ireland. It drives me insane, because we have an obsession with these multinationals instead of actually, why don't we support our own? So when they have all these job announcements here, they're all supported, paid for by the Irish government, whereas little old Mr. and Mrs. SME get no support at all. Anyway, I also thought it was interesting that the week after the ruling from the EU, some very senior person from Apple was over going, the infrastructure is terrible for people around our Cork office, so you need to build roads and whatever. And I just thought, come on, Ireland, time to grow up. A multinational coming across here, we're siding with them so they don't have to pay us 14 billion in tax. Then when they are told by the EU they have to pay 14 billion in tax, they start telling us what to do with the 14 billion in tax. Oh, and by the way, we have a budget next week. Lo and behold, lots of the 14 billion will be used to buy lots of different votes, whereas it should go into large infrastructure projects. Anyway, rant over.
Carl,
hopefully for 14 billion, you can get your motorway built to Cork.
Yeah, but
nothing else.
Hang on.
No,
a
but
minute.
we have the motorway built to Cork, but our infrastructure isn't bad. But there's a few key ones that we should absolutely do. Like when you boys fly into Shannon or Dublin, you can't get a train into town. Like, come on.
The airport's
there you
good,
go.
though. At
That's
Shannon.
what we should be spending. Shannon is brilliant, but like you're stuck there. You have to. There's very little bus
Well, you
connectivity.
normally
There's
send
no
a car to
trains,
pick
so-
us up. That's different.
I have done, yeah, once.
This is just a thought on that, because every big US tech company has their European headquarters in Ireland, whether it's Amazon, Meta, you name it. So there's going to be a continual windfall of billions heading your way. Because
Yeah, and we don't have
be
to
a one-off for Apple.
And we don't, but like there's lots of reasons for it. Clearly, the corporation tax cozy deals, right, which are being diluted. Those benefits they're not gone, but they're diluted. We're English speaking, right? We have a very educated workforce, but I just hate the fact that we pander and pander and pander and pander. And I'm like, can we please start looking after our own?
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
we're in a position now.
This is
where
not a
we have the
one-off.
money. Yeah,
there's going to be many
No,
more
hun-
of these. And
Yeah,
so you're
is
going to
there
get
an
if you're gonna-
estimate of how much is coming
you
in,
can get
Carl?
100 billion. You could be the wealthiest country in Europe by the year end.
No, I don't think there's more cases coming through.
Is there not?
I could be wrong on that.
Okay.
Could be wrong on that. But the corporation tax ain't going to stop just because of this, because it's going to take an awful lot for them to move their headquarters. But I just thought when I saw, sorry.
No, it's okay. But your the corporation tax that Apple pay in Ireland is the same corporation tax that Mr. and Mrs. O'Reilly and their startup limited company pay, right?
You mean the rates are
In terms of percentages.
Is it 12%?
I think I actually think I'm not brilliant on multinational tax rules, right? I'll be honest.
Is that not your strong point?
No, but I think it has been increased recently, actually. So to be fair, but
I thought it was around 12%, wasn't it, Carl?
Yeah, here he goes. I knew the ultra crepidarian would come in. He's an expert on Irish corporation tax.
yeah, no,
right.
that's what. That's for normal companies. I do think the multinationals have to pay a little bit extra as of recently.
All right.
Do not take me apart on social media if that's incorrect. I have clearly stated.
Because I am confused. Are you saying you don't want Apple to pay the 14 billion, or they should pay it and it should always have been paid?
No, they should have paid it. And what were we doing saying, oh, we don't want it? Like, we should have went, oh, well, the court is the court. Let the court decide, instead of kind of, saying, oh, no, don't think they should pay it.
Companies are very fluid, and we've got another hour of this show. By the end, if you want to, the list of great European tech startup successes over the last 20 years stands at precisely 0, as far as I can tell, and there is a reason for that.
This is just a total random offshoot, but there was a court case, again, I'm not going to be 100% right, between Apple and Samsung, I think, and the one that lost had to pay the other one $1 billion, and then the one that lost sent the $1 billion to them in coins. So a lorry arrived because it didn't stipulate how the money is paid. So Apple might pay Ireland in coins.
That must be an apocryphal
No, the
story.
money has been
That's
sitting
not
in an
real.
escrow account for the last 5 years. So Apple, this won't dent their accounts at all. This is like,
It's a rounding error.
a bit of
for
a
them.
problem, but
Yeah, it's around for Apple, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Anyway, my big point, just to be clear, is hello Ireland, can we look after ourselves, please? Never mind these multinationals. That will serve us best in the long term.
I think the money coming in is fantastic.
Okay, but if you tax them, they might move
missing
elsewhere,
something
and then you
here.
haven't got any tax, and you haven't got any employment from this
Yeah,
company. So
I think it's
not
a massive benefit. You've got a massive budget surplus at the moment, first time in years.
Which we do not need to accentuate any further. I'm not saying push them away. I am saying please support indigenous Irish business, not just the startups. 98% of the businesses in Ireland are SMEs. 70% of the employees in Ireland are employed by SMEs.
Yeah,
Please,
similar here.
please, Christ, please look after the SMEs. I'll talk about something else where they're not going to look after the SMEs. They're going to look after the civil servants in a second.
Wow,
Sorry, I'm exercised by this one.
United Kingdom and Ireland are becoming interchangeable in many ways. Not many of them good, sadly. And talking of that, actually, hangover from the last ridiculous government. I think national conscription, national service has gone down the pan with Rishi Sunak, but also has their British ISA idea. The last episode we recorded, Trappist, episode 53, feels like ages ago. We had to record it way ahead of the show going out, and then as soon as we recorded it, the announcement came the British ISA was being scrapped by the new administration, and credit to them for doing it. So goodbye and good riddance to that. And what a ridiculous idea it was. Okay. In the weeds now with Ultra.
Yeah, I'll try and keep this brief. This is a CGT strategy that I've heard from other financial advisors. I won't mention their names for obvious reasons, but I'll just share it with the Trappists. You may wish to employ it. So if you have, let's say, very simply, a unit trust portfolio that has got X £100,000 worth of gains before the budget comes out at the end of October. Let's say 5 to 10 days before the budget, you crystallize and you crystallize that gain at, keep it simple, 20%. If there's no change in the budget, you then repurchase back the same units, and you almost trip yourself up with the bed and breakfast 30-day rule. If there is a change in the budget and the CGT goes up, then obviously you stick and crystallize your gain at 20%. If there is no change and you repurchase back the same units, you're back in the same position you were. So you trip yourself up with the 30-day rule. That's a strategy that I know quite a few advisors are potentially going to implement. The caveats are obviously CGT rates changing. That's not the issue. The issue is she going to meddle and fiddle with the bed and breakfast 30-day rule? I think the chances of that are low. The chances of CGT going up are high. Advisors who are listening to this understand what I'm trying to say. So that's it, really. Any questions on that, Nick or Alan?
Are you saying if you buy them, if you trip yourself up, kind of half, so almost intentionally on the bed and breakfast rules, you're buying back exactly the same
to the original
fund.
Position.
Exactly so you haven't. Are you saying you're saying you haven't triggered a crystallization, a CGT event?
No, if you buy back the same units within 30 days. So if it's going to be 20%,
they just assume that it hasn't happened. Effectively, they say is it active?
Yeah, you just literally you buy the exact same unit straight back after the budget. If it's going to be 20%, and you're in the same position.
Units, do you literally have to have, if it's got like 1,754 units of XYZ fund?
You need to buy the same units, the same CDO numbers, the exact same purchase. You're tripping yourself up on the 30-day rule.
And markets will have moved in that time period.
The market movement is a secondary issue, but yes, the market movement's one thing.
Maybe.
The meddling and fiddling with the 30-day rule, and then obviously the CGT
there's
rates
potentially,
up or down.
To try to do that across an entire client bank, or one's liable for CGT is just.
I'm just saying,
oh my God.
One client that's if you've got one client that's pregnant with an enormous amount of gains, you might decide, you and the client.
Yeah.
Caveat, etc.
Yeah. So Rachel Reed sits down and scrap the 30-day rule.
Alan, you're usually trying to work around the 30-day rule and not trip yourself up with it.
This way,
you're tripping yourself up with it.
Potentially, but if the rate goes up, you execute and just say, I'm going to take the 20%
No, if the rate goes up, you stay where you are.
Yeah, exactly.
You crystallise the gain at a lower number. If the rate stays the same, you repurchase back the same units to trip yourself up with the bed and breakfast rule.
Yeah.
So obviously, if the bed and breakfast rule gets switched, you've got another problem.
The market has got to be people who are planning to sell the funds in a relatively short. You don't trigger CGT unless you crystallise funds, right?
It depends. It depends. Anyway,
yeah,
that's
you
the
could leave it for
all right already.
Jesus. Okay, are we done?
Yes.
Okay, thank God we could put capital gains tax behind us and move on to a brand new topic from Storyteller. Capital gains tax.
I thought this is quite a good one, actually. That Andy raised.
Is,
you guys are getting bored. This is core to the some aspects of proper financial planning and adding value.
We just
don't be
disheartened,
disheartened, Andrew, by these other two Philistines who don't understand this stuff. There was just a follow up to this, which was an interesting article. Model portfolio services have got increasingly more popular. Carl, we listened to your corporate bloody Irish tax nonsense for about half an hour, so pay attention for 2 minutes.
Complaining about receiving billions of dollars.
He's reading a book now.
Corporations around the world.
He's reading a magazine now. What's he reading? Oh, gosh. Explore. What is that? The Limerick Times.
Razzler. Is that still going? Right.
Right. No, model portfolio services have become increasingly popular. This is where it is a little bit in the weeds again. If you outsource to a model portfolio service which buys a lot of individual funds and they do automatic rebalancing, then you're going to trigger a capital gains tax charge kind of by default. If you outsource to what do you call it? Like a fund of funds, like a Vanguard Life Strategy, for example, is also a multi-asset portfolio fund type thing, but they're all kind of in-house, part of a fund. So they do their automatic rebalancing, no CGT. So, I mean, over the years, I don't know if you guys have come across, when we picked up portfolios from some traditional discretionary portfolio managers, they would be rebalancing left, right, and centre, triggering capital gains tax all over the place. And then we would raise this as an issue, and they would
Which
say,
is
"Oh,
mad.
we're portfolio managers, we're not tax advisors." And so they just did it, executed it, issued a tax certificate, client paid the tax, and it was all unnecessary. It didn't need to be done. So the point of what I'm saying is
Really?
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
attention.
Terrible.
Very famous names
all
do
the
it.
time. All the time that would happen.
And they charge fees, Alan, to do it.
And they charge
charge fees
they'll
as well.
charge 3% on the rebalance. It's insane.
Totally unnecessary.
Well,
Insane is right. Yeah.
Clients didn't really know. They just said, "Oh, there's some tax to pay on your portfolio this year. Here's a tax certificate." We would go, "Well, hang on a minute. You didn't have to pay all this. It wasn't legal or illegal not to rebalance at this time, or to pay a bit more attention to the rebalancing process and maybe sell down funds that had, underperformed. Being a bit more specific around the rebalancing process or any sort of fund switch type thing." But yeah, that happened very, very often. So it remains the case if you're outsourcing to model portfolios, you do have to pay attention. The point being here, and it is more being fiddly, is that you have got obviously your ISA and pension wrappers. This doesn't apply. So rebalancing, knock yourself out, go ahead. But anything in GIA type accounts or other accounts, you probably do need to pay a bit more attention. CGT historically, when we had higher allowances and reasonable tax rates, it wasn't so much of an issue. You've now got negligible allowances and possibly much higher tax rates. So it's another thing to pay attention to in this. And the last thing when I'm wrapping up, model portfolio services and tax and relating it to other alternatives which are out there. There was a report recently which confirmed that the HMRC has agreed that VAT is not applicable to be charged on model portfolio services. So that's a plus for anyone who is using those. So no additional 20%. And therefore it's creating broader daylight between model portfolios, advisor type portfolios, the ones that you build in-house, etc., and creating daylight between those and those, again, traditional discretionary fund managers who tend to charge 20% on their portfolios. So there's quite a big impact that will apply now for anyone who's using and outsourcing to the usual suspects that we've talked about in the past. Andrew?
A couple of points on that. So obviously any portfolios outside wrappers need to be flagged for no automatic rebalancing. A lot of thinking needs to be done before we pull the trigger on that. The second point you mentioned, you got 2 points. The MPS now no longer charging VAT and DFM's no longer charging VAT. Both, Alan.
No, specifically
just the MPSs.
What are defined as model portfolio services. They're run as opposed to a discretionary services, traditional discretionary portfolio buying and selling individual
still charging
stocks, funds. They have to charge VAT. Yeah,
they're still charging VAT on the 1%, whatever it is.
So the clients of those firms are paying whatever their fees are, possibly not getting as much attention paid to detail on the CGT planning around rebalancing and paying 20% VAT on top.
Just on the rebalancing, because Nick looks quite confused about it. So this is happening pretty much to today. There's large asset managers that Nick. They'll do a...
No, I'm not confused, mate. I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed that it goes on, especially if CGT rates go to 45%.
Because So the investment team will make a decision that they're going to move portfolio of 5 to 3 different funds. They literally just pull the trigger. Pensions ISAs immediately happens, and then the GIA happens as well. And the advisor of that client says, "I'm sorry, our investment team's made a decision here. On the old rules, you've got a $4,500 tax bill that you've got to declare at the end of the year. On the new rules, you've got, who knows, 10 grand, 12.5 grand tax bill that you've got." And they're going to say,
rest.
"Why have you done that?" And they're going to say, because our investment team and their strategic thinking have now done a tactical change. BS.
It'll be in their terms of business. They'll just say, "This is what we do. We manage a portfolio. We rebalance on a regular basis, whatever it might be."
And we're going to. Sorry, Nick. Go on.
We only charge 3% on the switched funds, and that's and we only charge an ongoing fee of 1% a year.
It's new money plus VAT,
and unfortunately, there's VAT on
Quinton
top of that.
Posh Boy here. Listen, I've been hearing some nasty rumours that we're viewed as nothing more than a bunch of cheap grifters. I'll have you know, we're not cheap.
Posh
There we go,
DFM.
perennial.
Your money, our future.
Posh DFM doing their bit. Well, that will be a thing.
There's more.
Okay.
Thank you for running that jingle past us all, Nick. That's fine. That's
We
great.
are 35 minutes in. And we've still got loads to go. So, what voice? De La Voce. Pension SFT.
SFT, very quickly, budget is next week. As I alluded to before, they kind of leaked this stuff out. They haven't decided to leak this out. The minister came out and said, this is what we're doing next week. So the SFT standard fund threshold is going to increase. It's going to get to 2.8 million by 2029. It's currently at 2 million. It's actually 2.15 million. But anyway, a real civil servant jobby here because they've decided not to increase the lump sums coming from it. They just had to solve their problems for their friends in the civil servants service whose defined benefit schemes were being calculated as over the SFT. Back to my point earlier that will you just look after the people who are running the bloody businesses in Ireland, please? They're the biggest employer by a mile. Give us a break.
Welcome to your new world. Welcome to our world.
Yeah, welcome to
our
our
entrepreneur
world.
relief is only £1 million. So
welcome
come
to our
on,
world.
give us a break. Increase the tax, the lump sum that's coming out of these pensions, please. It is to be welcomed, a little bit like the 14 billion. But come on,
do it for the right
please.
reasons, not to look up. I mean, in this country we got rid of the lifetime allowance, which is the equivalent of your SRT, really. And Labour, when the previous government got rid of it, said we're going to bring it back, blah blah. And now they quietly dropped it, but there's still parts of me dreading Rachel Reeves getting up on the 30th of October and saying we're bringing back the lifetime allowance, but we're going to bring in a carve-in for the NHS, because the reason the lifetime allowance was dropped nominally was because doctors and dentists and surgeons were just leaving the NHS in droves, so they didn't want to pay the tax on the excess. Yep. And the Labour and the NHS, it's a very polite, very symbiotic relationship.
Similar, yeah.
Okay. This is a good one. Yeah, I looked at the link. I looked at this one, Storyteller, the comments and the LinkedIn thing about another risk profiler shit show.
Yeah. So I've described it. This was an article which originally appeared in the Telegraph last week in their money makeover section, and then the journalist Ruby Hinchcliffe posted it on.
Personal friend?
Yeah, I guess so. As journalists go, she's a girl. I speak to her now and again. She's one of the good ones, and she posted it on LinkedIn, saying any comments, and the headline of the article is. And I quote, this is from the reader's questions. I've paid £11,000 in fees for 1,600 pension growth. Is this normal? So that was the thing. So the initial question was about fees and just say, these fees must be outrageous to pay £11,000 in fees and only had £1,600 in growth. But if you open the article and read it, there's more here than initially meets the eye. The fees quoted, and I think it's in the order, I can't remember exactly, it's about 1.6% annualized fee, kind of all in for everything, which isn't outrageous. It's roughly ballpark market, I think, for investment. If he's getting proper financial planning advice, because he has gone through an intermediary, an advisor, if he's getting an investment portfolio, if it sits on a custody or a platform. So that's what he's paying. So I didn't think that was sort of way, way, way out of line. But then you sort of dig into the article and you read that this guy who's, I think he's recently retired. He's 64 years old. He set this up a couple of years ago with his advisor, and he's currently sitting in his portfolio of 52% government bonds. Now, it wouldn't have helped him in terms of his timing, because I think he invested just at the time when they sort of had an almighty crash in terms of the gilts as an investment in certainly UK government gilts, or actually around the world. So he would have taken a haircut on that for sure. So timing wasn't ideal, but it just smacked of one of these situations where he said, I'm about to go into retirement. He would have been asked about are you a cautious, balanced, aggressive, adventurous, all these crazy words that people use. And they plugged him into a cautious portfolio, which is more than half invested for somebody who's in their early 60s with a reasonable expectation of up to 3 decades of future life to support. No wonder he hasn't gone very far with his investment portfolio. Meantime, equity markets have raged away. Not saying it should be 100% equities in his situation, but a proper planner would have allocated that properly. So it's more, as I say, the fees are not unreasonable overall. It's the investment approach, the risk profiler, a client expressing that they're fairly cautious because they're just going to retirement, and arriving at this situation, which is suboptimal to say the least. Andrew.
A couple of points on this. Well, all financial advisors at a certain point in their client relationship will be charging fees, be it percentage or agreed. And at a certain point, they'll be temporarily, underwater. There'll be temporary declines. So we're all guilty of charging at times when a client is temporarily losing money. We know long-term the market's up 75% of the time and down 25% of the time. So that's one point. Based on the numbers you mentioned, this client has got around 700,000 if he's paying those fees at 1.6. My final statement really is when you combine an investing illiterate financial advisor with an investing illiterate client, the result is a multi-asset, low-returning mess. But very compliant and truly arse-covering, thank you regulation. There's thousands of clients out there in this situation. Grey hair equals low-returning portfolios. This needs to change.
Yeah. Brilliant. Love it, Andy.
Okay, our work is never done, as we all say continually to each other and to the world. And sometimes it feels like you're screaming into the void. Podcasts as a source of CPD. So I subscribe to various financial advice related podcasts. Some are good, some are less so. And one of them that I do subscribe to, I don't listen to every episode, I don't listen to many episodes, is the Financial Advisor one. But interestingly, in the notes for the latest episode, it said this qualifies, listening to this podcast qualifies as CPD. Now, this is interesting. I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's got to be unstructured because you can't be tested on it. On what you learn, there's no sort of accountability, or what have you. But I mean, I listen to loads of enough stuff through my years. I think would get me my 21 years of unstructured just through listening to podcasts. I don't know quite how. I don't know if Trappists, when you listen to this, if you put it down as unstructured CPD.
It was a bit of a Freudian slip there, Nick. You said 21 years. You mean 21 hours?
Yeah, exactly. There was Freudian. It feels like 21 years, but thank you, my friend. Yeah, the absolute Freudian slip. 21 hours, sorry, of is it 21 of structured or I lose track or whatever. So if you're listening to stuff as podcasts, you may be able to get it by your compliance officer. This is CPD, in which case, happy days for those of us that consume reasonable amounts of it.
Nick, you were appointed as the compliance officer for TRAP, weren't you, initially when we set up? So could you get this approved for CPD for all the listeners?
Yep.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. I'll just consider it done. I'll just tick this box here. Yeah, done.
Well done, mate. Well done.
Done. And your compliance for the year is complete, Mr. Smith. Done. Okay, Wodge. I don't even know how you say it. Moneda? Funny that what? Is it Moneda?
Don't know what they're called. Anyway, I purposely have not put a link to them in the show notes because I don't want to be drawing anybody's attention to this firm. But Troy from Moneda, I'm going to call him Capital, has emailed me 3 times in the last 10 days to say, come on, are you not interested in guaranteed returns of between 4.3% and 10% per annum? I'm not, Troy, because I wouldn't believe it, unfortunately. And you can now stop emailing me. Our work is never done, as you just said. It's amazing. I think you might have put this up on social media somewhere, Nick, and somebody came back and went, important to note that this firm is not regulated by the FCA.
David Hearn, said that,
Yeah, and look, there's just so many of these firms out there. Our work will never be done, and it's, unfortunately, a battle we're going to keep on having to fight with our clients receiving these kind of emails all of the time. And I could see, if I didn't know any different, how that might be actually very attractive, and you might go down a rabbit hole with this firm or any other firm. So just thought I'd point it out. But Troy, stop emailing me.
Well done, fella. Well done. I know we had a chuckle about this, didn't we, online about if they're offering guaranteed returns of between 4.3 to 10%. Why would we never go for the 4.3 if the 10% is guaranteed?
Yeah, like, I'll have the 10, please.
I'll have the 10. When you bring out the 20, I want some of that as well.
When it's guaranteed, there should never be a range.
Yeah. But it's I literally read the email because I kept one of them. It's in my junk now, right? So, but
I'm going to go. I want to go for the 4.3 because that'd be lower risk. Yeah, but it's guaranteed.
They're all guaranteed. There shouldn't be a range when it's guaranteed. There's one number.
This
one. I put in
a
a
big
call
guaranteed.
on Tuesday or Wednesday to talk through how we can help you grow your wealth. He's He's making a big assumption there. Anyway, and deliver guaranteed fixed returns of between 4.3% and 10%. Like,
I mean, guaranteed fixed returns. That sounds very appealing.
Yeah.
That's ticking all the boxes.
Yeah.
As Andy calls them. Just
exactly.
Well, the bottom line with all these things is if someone's offering a 10% guaranteed return, you're thinking, well, why aren't you keeping it to yourself? If it's so great, why are you punting this out there? You keep it to yourself and make billions. Okay, we're at, crikey, 3/4 of an hour. We've got one last topical tidbit, Trappist, and this is from Storyteller.
I just wanted to round up this episode's topical tidbits on I think this is just sort of anecdotal storytelling, but just really positive. During the course of the last week, I attended various events. The initial one was run by a good friend of the Trap Pack, Dave Ferguson, at the CEO of Seckle. Brilliant presentation. They've just produced a new paper. The whole thing is called Gradually Then Suddenly, talking about tech innovation across the sector, a lot of work they're doing. I've posted a link to that paper in our show notes. If anyone wants to go directly to it, download it. It is a good read. I left that and went to an event held by the founder of close personal friend, previously mentioned on here, Forenzi, who are doing democratizing Lombard lending, borrowing against your portfolio. Again, CGT planning, more and more interesting if you need more money, sort of short term. But anyway, there was a fabulous event held by him and his colleagues, and there was a bunch of other kind of tech entrepreneur people in the room, a bunch of conversations with them. Really, really exciting. I went along and also met up with Nikki, previously mentioned Nikki Seville from Woven Advice, who's also doing some good stuff. And a couple of days later, I showed up at the Timeline event. So Abraham and his colleagues were hosting an event there. And as I said, it was just a series of really positive, optimistic conversations with a whole bunch of people. Some are working for these organizations, some are customers and clients of them. And there was a real sense of optimism in all the various places that I went. Really positive conversations. It just feels like I've been running, as you know, this company 20 years, always tried to innovate and try to capture new ideas, new technology. And another one worth mentioning before I forget as well, and they were out at Future Proof, is the guys from the AI company, Saturn. Saturn AI, who are also, I spoke with them again during the course of the last week, and they've just got a whole new set of tools which are being rolled out literally, I think, this week, next week. So all of a sudden, just to summarize, Dave Ferguson's paper, Gradually Then Suddenly, I've been waiting 20 years for this, and it seems that it's arrived. And a lot of this stuff all speaks to each other, and it's just there's a new sense of optimism for people who are embracing this stuff. The point being here, if it just makes all of our lives simpler, easier, all connected, less issues, less complexity, and less cost, it enables us to deliver better quality services to a wider audience of our clients. So I just wanted to say that. Be optimistic and be positive about the future because of all these innovations that are coming down the line. Andy?
I'm going to steal one of your quotes here, which is a rarity. I've never been to a bad tech presentation. That's what you told me years ago, which is right. Always looks fantastic when they're presenting their new tools. Absolutely. You implement it into the business. It's a different story. So last week you only went to 14 events. How many events you got this week, Alan?
I've got 12 this week. What else can I do? What else can I do?
Slacking.
But that's the point.
No, but it is.
I've been to so many of these events over the years and promised, but there's almost like the difference in time. If you speak to some of these unnamed tech providers, to IFAs in the past, they would say, you'd ask, well, what about this? It'd be great if we could have X. And they say, yeah, that's on our roadmap. Yeah. Right now, where we're speaking in September, they'd say that'll be Q2 next year. And you go, oh, okay, fine. And then Q2 would roll around and say, well, we haven't quite done it. It's more like by the end of the year. And it's like months, and in some cases, years. And sometimes this stuff never happened. The sense of urgency and speed that I'm embracing now. So I would just say, is this available? Well, that's available now. Or this is coming literally by November, they would say, guaranteed for sure. And they're delivering. So the speed at which things are changing is fast.
Yeah, I think, Alan, part of that is I share your optimism, by the way, and I've had some of those discussions as well. I really think we're on the cusp of something great. I think, as well as all the systems talking to each other, it will make us slicker and make us look better and just make us look more professional. After all, that's what we're trying to do. But I think part of the reason for this is the incumbents are going to actually, some of them are going to be left behind, because that's what you're talking about. Oh yeah, we'll look at it in Q4 next year or whatever, right?
Yeah.
We now have disruptors
we do.
who are coming in and going, this works.
Yeah.
Here we are. We're ready. Let's
they
go.
can implement a lot quicker.
Well,
Exactly.
some of the
Yeah.
incumbents, Carl, it's literally impossible for them to change because of the kind of legacy technology that they built. The entire world, the entire platforms are based on. Unless they scrap it and start again. I mean, I'm no expert on this,
100%.
but I've had a few chats with people who can know about this stuff.
They just can't do it. Even best will in the world, they couldn't do it. I get that. I totally get that.
It's good. All good stuff.
Yeah,
that's us, Nicholas. Moving on.
Okie dokie. Good one to end on there, Alan. Thank you for that. Okay, so we're at 51 minutes. Christ on a bike. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes of episode 54 of the award-winning Real Advisor podcast. And this one is about breaking bad news. Breaking bad news to clients. If you are a real financial advisor, you need to be, and you will find yourself having to break bad news, perhaps more often than you like, because we're here to tell the truth, and it's not always pleasant. Voice, you had an experience of that recently as a real financial advisor. Talk to the dear Trappists about your experience.
Yeah, we chatted about this privately, and I kind of just told you the story. I'm going to probably skirt around some of the details if that's okay. But
of course,
part of our contract with you that I might have mentioned before, one of them is we will tell you the truth about your money. And I know when I was setting up and starting my business, I would have been probably, number one, afraid to tell people the truth about their money. And number two, secondly, thinking about myself, I would have been afraid of not being able to get business out of that person if I told them the truth about their money. But I do think it's really, really important, because I had a husband and wife, this only happened in the last week or two, who I've known for a good while, but they haven't really ever engaged. And he's got a fairly serious, significant job that's really well paid, but has probably not controlled his spending much over the last couple of decades, and is now mid to late 50s and is, when can we retire? I'm probably looking at maybe a year or 18 months, do the financial plan, and unfortunately that's not going to be possible. And I would say this serious and well-paid job is also highly pressurized, and I'd say he's coming to the end of his tether. And he, number one, didn't like the news, but his wife was devastated with the news. And look, sometimes we just gotta front up and just tell them. And I probably, reflecting back on the relationship I was in and I was out kind of thing with these folks, I probably should have been way stronger with my message. Although I delivered my message back then, right? I should have probably been much, much stronger. And then, that's reflecting on that one, and happy to kind of tease that one out and talk it through. But last year, had a husband and wife team who ran a business together, sold their business, and made probably just about enough to see themselves through. But maybe a little bit of consulting work or something like that over a period of time would have just added that little bit of layer of comfort that they would have needed. But what did they do? They wanted to, one of the parties of the husband and wife team wanted to go back and invest in another small kind of business that could have gone great, but it was going to lock the money up or whatever. And I was very strong last year, right? And this is what I wished I was much stronger with the previous couple I spoke about. And I went, that would be a terrible idea. And if you want to do that, I'm not sure that we're the right fit for you. And he didn't do business, and he got a bit cross with me, and perhaps called me a few names or whatever, right? And I just went, look, we're just not for you. Let's just be professional about it and just walk away from each other. So look, I just thought, because I set out in the first story, I said, because I set my stall out probably 10 or 12 years ago with these people, and I was a little bit softly, and I was trying, over a long period of time to, be more firm with them and tell them the truth about their money. because I set my stall out poorly at the start, it made it difficult for my message to land at all. And I would just encourage, I know that there's tons and tons of younger advisors. Sure, most of the reviews we read out are from younger advisors saying, wow, this is great. So look, if I could just say one thing to the younger advisors, if they're not going to listen to you, if it just feels off from the off, just don't go there, because it's just going to cause... It actually does the client no favors, right? So if we're always about the client, number one, it does the client no favors if they're not going to listen to you. But it certainly does you and your firm, hopefully, that you're going to build, it does you no favors as well. So I just thought I'd put it out there as a topic for discussion, because I've had a few challenges in the last couple of weeks. And, as I've been very honest with you guys about them, it ain't all plain sailing, guys. Running a business is difficult, and this financial planning game, talking about people and their life savings and their goals and their dreams and their aspirations,
Absolutely.
it's not all very straightforward.
Absolutely. Who wants? I'm happy to go next on this, because I've got quite strong feelings about this particular subject. I think if you're not breaking bad news on a fairly regular basis, i.e. throughout the year, you're probably not doing the job that I think you should be doing, that we all confess to be doing as real financial planners. People come to us and they want to be told the truth, okay? And specifically, they want the answers to the eternal question, are we going to be okay? And I think a lot of advisors who profess to doing cash flow modeling pay it lip service, and they're not in a position to tell their clients the truth about their money, because they don't do the cash flow. And without the cash flow, you can't tell clients good news or bad news. You want to be able to break great news to clients, but you have to be there also to tell them the bad news, to tell them the truth, so at least they can do something about it. Out of control spending is a horrible one, isn't it? Because you're just like, you're an adult, you're talking to adults, maybe typically older than you, people who have achieved some success in life, but as soon as you think there's a spending pattern is out of control, you've got to tell them in a way that's pretty nice and say, listen, we engaged on this basis, you're spending at that basis, your pots are going to run out unless something changes here. So, let's just review this and in a year's time, see how things go. But the moment you think the spending is out of control, there are always one-off expenses, right? There's always going to be the extension. There's always going to be the replacement car. There's always going to be the special number. But if that becomes a set-in habit, that actually those sort of a gratuitous expenditure become part of the regular expenditure, you've just got to... You're doing them a favor. You're treating them as human beings. You're speaking to them the way you would want to be spoken to. You might not want to hear it, but you've got to get it out there early on.
Nick, can I just jump in on that particular, just on that point, because I have tried to deliver that news in two ways, right? Number one is the way you just said there, which is, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you're spending too much. You're going to run out of money. If you can reframe this slightly, I think the message will land much, much better, okay? Or it'll maybe be taken on board. So what I will say in that scenario is I'll go, this is not a budgeting service. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take what your lifestyle expenses are, and I'm going to put them into the plan, and I'm going to tell you if you're going to have enough money to see you out or otherwise. So by reframing just very slightly to you're spending too much to this is not a budgeting service, I'm just going to put the real spend in and tell you when you're going to run out of money, if at all. I think that very subtle change will help any financial planner deliver the overspend discussion with clients, because it can be a real difficult one.
I think you're right there, Carl. And by the way, it's not binary. It shouldn't necessarily be you're going to run out of money, you're spending too much. I would be positioning it like this is a collaborative process. Let's work together to run through some of the options. There's always options. You could, if you literally cannot spend any less, well, some of the plans could change. Do you want to, what is the investment portfolio? Is there an opportunity to get a higher rate of return longer term, albeit that might come with a little bit more volatility? Are there plans to, gift assets to children that might need to be curtailed? Any number of different variables. And I think the idea of working collaboratively with your clients, say, how can we solve this challenge
100%
that we've got, rather than, but at some point, you might exhaust all. If there's no, we're not going to change that. We're not going to do this. Well, at some point, there comes you have to just, you have to sort of stick to the plan and just say we can't probably help you any further than this. But Nick, you wanted to carry on?
Okay, I'll just close on mine, and then we'll hand over to Ultra. I mean,
sorry, Nick.
No, it's fine. Great. It's good. Otherwise, it becomes a monologue. So I thank you for the interjection. I would say that, and I just want to hammer this back, that if you're not breaking bad news, you're probably not doing the job. You're not doing the job properly. You're not doing the job well enough. Most of the time, you'll be giving good news, but you can't just be giving good news without sometimes coming across a case where you're going to break bad news to somebody. Okay, but the fact is, if you're doing proper financial advice, if you're building a bespoke, meaningful cash flow that's really aligned a couple's goals and aspirations with their money, then you are the one person in this world who can tell them the truth about their money. Yes, it's based on a whole range of assumptions and what have you. But there are many financial advisors who just want to shuffle bits of paper, look at projections from pension companies and so forth, and just take their clip and push away. And they'll never answer the question because they're not in a position to answer the question. And if it's not lying, but it's lying by omission. It's lying by admission. Our job is to tell people the truth about their money and to answer the one key question. And that will involve breaking bad news. And if you're a younger advisor, suck it up. It's part of the job. As I said, the great thing about breaking bad news is most of the time you're delivering great news. Sometimes you've got to deliver the bad news, right? Right. Ultra.
That's some great points so far. I've got a few points to throw in the mix. Carl was alluding to earlier on, it's a sort of trait I look for in clients is their teachability. Certainly in the early stages, you're discussing various points. Are they open to these new ideas? Are they just pushing back immediately? So teachability is a trait that I look for in clients subtly. The other points, we're here to deliver the unvarnished truth. At times it can appear like tough financial love. When I was putting some notes together for this earlier today, the two key words that came to me were competence and confidence. When we first start out in this business, clients can dictate the direction of travel, how we're going to provide advice. The more competent you become, obviously then leads to more confidence. So now most of us have shrunk our circle of competence, and we know the right thing for clients. We deliver, radical candor delivered with, kindness, let's say. And also we deal with...
Andy, just on that point before you go on to the next one, like the younger advisors who buy into that will thank themselves in the future, I promise you. And it's hard to do when you're setting out. So just to say that.
No, thank you, mate. Thank you. I've often said to clients along the years, I don't want to be a co-pilot to a financial sinking ship. The main thing is running out of money. And Nick has alluded to, you can only tell someone if they're potentially going to run out of money or not if you've done a financial forecast, with all the caveats of anything can happen. We've got loads of financial levers to pull. Obviously, the experts know that we've built hundreds of thousands of plans with real clients year in, year out. Also, wealthy people are often surrounded by yes people, successful business people. Yes. We come along and go, no, you can't do that. That's wrong. That's bad. Change that. What are you doing here? Some people take to that and some people push back against that. I've found the sort of smarter, wiser business people over the years, they take to that sort of no person. I'm happy to be people's no. Believe it or not, I'm a no person. And when I come into their lives... Sorry.
You're spot on. You're spot on with that. I mean, we break bad news from the get-go, don't we? Mr. Klein, Mr. Prospect. Well, what's your economic prognostications? How do you review what's happening with the markets? Well, we don't. Well, how do you time the markets? We don't. How do you pick your active fund managers? Well, we don't. Yeah. Everything they want,
we're taking them up a no ladder.
Say yes to, we say no.
We're taking them up the no ladder. Yeah. I say that. If you actually end up becoming a client of mine, you've heard no sort of 25 times along the way. So if you actually are at the end of that no ladder, you're here forever, because a lot of people fall by the wayside along the way. And the other thing is, wealthy individuals, it can be isolating. Like they can't talk to their mates, they can't talk to their family. So speaking to us is quite a rarity. Certainly if you're quite young and financially successful, the sort of challenges of middle-class millionaires, let's say. It's quite an interesting subject. My final point on my situation, most of the clients I take on now, I'm pretty sure I'm not really going to run out of money, just sort of the level I am, the clients I take on. But I've got a historical client bank that there's a few people that are quite close to the line.
Andy, the ultra crepidarian Andy, he knows about everything. Andy can't be told anything. His name is Andrew Hart. Andrew Hart.
Yeah, my final point is I'm sure there's lots of people listening to this who are at a certain point in their career that the new clients they take on are probably wealthier and unlikely to run out of money, but they've got a historical client bank of clients that are close to the line. But we feel an obligation to look after these people because they, came with us when we started out our businesses, originally. So they're the clients that we have to have a louder word in their ear. Anyway, that's my final point.
I'll tell you one thing about this. Go on then, Nick.
Go on.
Was it my turn now? Thanks. I was going to say, there's one thing about this group, the four of us in our private WhatsApp chat. There's some radical candor going on in there, I can tell you. There's no beating about the bush in that particular group. Telling the truth is really, really important to me and my company and colleagues. So much so that it's one of our 5 core values, 5 C's, which includes collaboration, creativity, and candor. And actually, it works both externally and internally. Telling the truth to your colleagues as well, even when you've got a point that you disagree with, I think it's really important. There's books written on this subject. There's so many businesses that struggle because people aren't prepared to confront leaders, colleagues, or anything else. They've got a different view, different opinion, but they think, "Oh, I'll just keep it to myself. I don't need the aggro in my life." I just think it's really important. We do our best in my business to try to always tell the truth. Do it professionally, do it politely, but tell the truth to each other. And of course, that applies to our relationships with clients. When I knew we were going to talk about this, I sort of reflected back on where we'd had challenges with clients, and some have worked by telling the truth and some haven't. There was a client we were speaking with a few years ago who was exactly in that thing, absolutely on track to run out of money relatively early and would not stop his spending habits. Used to bring his wife into the meetings and all of a sudden she stopped appearing. And there's a dilemma there as well for us. Does the family, does the couple, does the other half know that they are heading for financial catastrophe 10 years from now if they carry on like this? And it was really awkward. And to the extent that we had a kind of just a meeting saying, we can't in all, good conscience carry on and advise you. We're telling you, you're heading for a slow motion car crash. Every year we engage, we update. And by the way, this was in the back of fantastic investment markets and investment returns. Had you gone through, which could have done at any time, a real significant market correction, which is, not only possible, but not only probable, but guaranteed, it would have been much, much worse. So I was constantly thinking, this is a real problem for us. And we said at one point, it was a kind of ultimatum, we are going to have to resign from managing your account. We came up with all sorts of alternatives and solutions and things in terms of how we could, manage the situation. And at the point of us just stepping away, he said, we can't carry on. He said, no, fine. And it took that for him to change his spending habits. It was a lot of extra expense in terms of, quite expensive holidays, changing cars quite more regularly than he needed to do. And he's still a client now. And he's pretty much back on track. Yeah, he downgraded his lifestyle, moved to North Watford.
He's driving a Toyota.
Not my Toyota.
No, he wasn't prepared to compromise on that sort of lifestyle. I don't know who would. Oh, sorry. And the other one, which didn't work out so well, which is another example of telling the truth, was 2020. We all cast our minds back to that. Markets absolutely fall off a cliff. One particular client comes and says, that one that you alluded to a minute ago, Nick, what are you guys doing about it? What are you doing about it? And we said, nothing. It will recover. It's in the plan. Keep going. And he just didn't like it. He just, we did our best to, you repeat yourself. You look back, were we not strong enough when we took the client on? And you think, well, there's not a lot more that we could have done initially in our early days.
He wasn't teachable. He wasn't teachable.
He wanted action and activity. Just do something. And I said, we are doing. And it was just, and eventually he just sent an email say, I'm sorry, I found another advisor. I won't mention the name. Well-known national actively trading manager that send out weekly portfolio updates about what the dollar's going to do and the yen trade and all that sort of stuff. So he was, intellectually satisfied with that because somebody appeared to be doing something, and we lost that battle.
Advisors in his life.
Yeah, we lost that battle. I regretted that because he was a good guy, good client, good family, and I know, and this is a bold statement. I know he'd be worse off long term, 10 years, 20 years down the line, knowing
he's worse off now.
Yeah.
If he stayed with you for the last 4 years, you don't have to wait 10 years.
You lost that battle, Smithy, but you're going to win the war by cleaving to your beliefs.
You've got to, and it would have been easy for us to say, look, okay, well, to keep the client, keep the fee. We could say we'll move you to a discretionary manager. They'll give you daily updates if you want on their portfolio, but we can't. You've got ideals, you've got values, you've got what you believe in, you've got your North Star, and you've got to stick to it. Principles, stick to it through thick and thin, and you will lose clients as a result, and you can't win them all.
Yeah,
but they tend to be replaced quite quickly as well. Someone comes in and.
I was at a barbecue. I was at a barbecue once, and the guy there, I know he's got a few quid. He came up to me and said, "Andy, I want to have a meeting with you. I've had 5 financial advisors, and they've all been terrible." I'm thinking, as if I'm going to be the freaking sixth.
Yeah, the sixth.
Avoid.
Exactly. Red flag.
Yeah, all 5 of them have been terrible. Not going to say his name.
Thank God you told me before I wasted much time with you. Thank God
that's the best thing you could ever say to me in the opening line.
Next year's barbecue, I had Andy Hart as my advisor. Jesus, he hasn't a clue what he's doing.
Oh, he's awful.
Yeah, you could. It's just so predictable, isn't it?
Looking for my 7th financial advisor.
Yeah.
Red flag. Look, you've kind of mentioned it before, Andy. One of our roles is accountability coach, both in terms of encouraging people to save money, invest, stick to the program, and all that. And that's what we are called to do for these people. And it is easier to give people what they want as opposed to what they need. So you stick to your guns, you act as the accountability coach. It's referenced in detail, Nick. I think you might be mentioning it later, but the book that I mentioned before, David Baker and his book, he talks about order takers versus truth tellers. Are you an order taker or are you a truth teller? And he said, truth telling takes courage, and not everyone's got it. But if you've got courage and you tell the truth, you will lose some of the battles, but you will always win the war. And you'll have integrity, and you look yourself in the mirror, you say, I'm doing the right thing by my clients, by myself, by my firm. So I rest my case, Your Honor.
Mitch Anthony's phrase, our job is to hold our clients' feet to the fire of their best intentions.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, we gave that a damn good thrash in that meat and potatoes, and I hope, dear Trappist, you enjoyed that as much as I did listening to the other members of the Trap Pack. Okay, Tempest is fugiting at a rapid click. It's 73 minutes in, and we haven't even yet got to Trappist questions. But luckily, I can see Postie's at the front door, and she's hauling the bulging sack of Trappist questions up my driveway. You can leave a question via the link in the pinned tweet. Also, there will be a link to that in the so-called show notes, and we're getting through them gradually, but we've still got quite a few to go. So let's see who the first one is from. Let me open up this letter here. This is from Darren F. Now, Darren F., I don't know if you wanted to remain anonymous or not, but sadly you also put your LinkedIn profile in there, so I know your name is Darren Ford. And as I'm going to put the LinkedIn link in the so-called show notes, it's out there in the public domain. Hi guys, I'm a newly qualified IFA. I know you're all pro global equities, but wanted to hear your thoughts on shifting client monies into mainly dividend paying funds when they're close to retirement, and whether you think this could be beneficial for particular clients / circumstances. Right, Delavocci has turned off his camera and his microphone, so he's just gone outside for a cigarette probably. I'm happy to run off with this one initially. I think historically, it's a good question, Darren, especially if you're new to the profession. That would have been the way to do it. That's probably the way you're taught to do it in textbooks, I guess. I would avoid clients in retirement going to income-based funds, if only because dividends are lumpy, they're irregular, and it's your fault if the dividend is not at least as much as it was the previous quarter 6 months ago. I go for a total return a total return kind of approach. And this is the reason why. And once the penny dropped on this, it became bloody obvious. If you've got £100 in a stock and it announces a 5% dividend, it pays out £5. The share price drops by that equivalent amount immediately. So your shares are now worth £95. So why not just take the £5 out of the £100?
It's not that cut and dry, but
no, it is that cut and dry.
It's not that.
No, it is that cut and dry.
Okay,
it absolutely is that cut and dry. Otherwise, people will game the system. It is absolutely that cut and dry.
You're smart, and I'm right. And sooner or later, you realise I'm right.
Okay, right, Andy. Okay, then go and work on that and be a millionaire and work the edges. It's absolutely that cut and dry. The share price drops by the amount of the dividend. So why not just take a slice of the total value of the share portfolio? Accumulation units, work out what's a sustainable withdrawal rate. Obviously, there is no such thing as a 4% withdrawal rate because that assumes we're all exactly the same and all have exactly the same life. So we don't. With the cash flow, coming back to the meat and potatoes part of this program, if you're doing the cash flow for everybody, you work out a sustainable rate of income across the client's portfolios rather, and you take that rate. But you take it as a total return thing. That's how I would approach it. Guys, your thoughts?
I agree with you, total return. Just to answer his question directly, I think there's a couple of points here. I'm maybe assuming. He's assuming because that client is now in retirement, therefore they need income to fund their lifestyle. So therefore we need to create income in the investment portfolio, which we do in a slightly different way. I've done a bit of background research to this question, actually. There is a well-known fund manager that has a high income dividend global equity portfolio. The yield at the moment is 2.97. Let's just round it up and say 3. I think our 100% global equity portfolio is around 1.2, 1.3. So the discrepancy is high in terms of percentage, but in terms of overall return, nothing really to shout about. I know you can get obviously high dividend paying funds that are probably paying 5, 6, and individual stocks that are paying 6, 7, 8, pick a big number. But no, in terms of managing the cash flow for the client, I'm happy with total returns for various different reasons. That's it. Over to you, Alan.
Yeah, I think this has become, this is a bit old fashioned, this idea of investing in dividend paying stocks to generate an income. And what are you going to live on the natural income, the yield that is provided? That's the horse before the cart. Let's just say whatever income I get, then I'll have to live according to that. This has been largely superseded by people doing real financial planning, where you sit down with a client, you work out what their lifestyle looks like, what their income requirements are, then you optimize for that across all asset classes as appropriate, and you keep a healthy cash buffer to fund your known expenses for the next whatever year, 2 years, 3 years, etc. It's getting into the weeds. It sounds like as a new advisor, he's either read a textbook or been told by a senior or someone else, this is the way to do it. I mean, honestly, if in the 1980s or 90s, this should get talked about quite a lot, and it still is talked about, and it's like a Warren Buffettism, isn't it? It's kind of value stocks, income generated, etc. But that's a slightly different conversation. No, the answer, according to us, is look for total return in terms of capital growth and or income, and then work out what your client needs, build a model, build a plan, apply your cash buffer allowance, and deliver what the client needs when they need it. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Carl, anything to add?
I'm shocked that it took 3 goes to answer the question. Financial planning is a process. And you plan each year how much you need in the short term for cash, and you draw that out of your portfolios. For me, as you know, it's first 3 years, then it's 3 to kind of 8, 9 years, and then it's longer term, it's 100% equities. So you can decide where you're going to pull the money out of and what pots you're going to pull the money out of. It's financial planning. You don't need dividend income. And that goes back to this 4% and the guardrails. It's all a load of all shite.
It works on a spreadsheet, not in real life.
Yeah, it's a load of crap. I'm sorry, it is. Financial planning, and decide, in advance how much you need for the next 2 or 3 years. That's where you get your income from. Nowhere else. And it's not a stupid...
You've not read Bill Bengen's 1994 opus. I mean, it's essential reading if you're dealing with human beings.
But it's not an old fashioned or a stupid question from whoever our listener, because
no, not at all. He's a young man.
This still prevails in our business.
This is the point I was saying. He's been told that somewhere,
Exactly.
And it's legacy thinking from a different era.
There's no such
Didn't I kind of say that when I
no
answered
such thing.
the
No
question?
such thing as a stupid question. Only a stupid person.
Yeah.
All right, good cliche there, Andrew.
Yeah,
Moving
that's
on.
okay. I'm tempted to play the Andy Ultra one again, but I won't do. Okay, so so there you go, Darren F. Known on LinkedIn as Darren Ford. Hope that answered your question, and I hope you enjoy this mighty profession, this thing of ours that you've entered. Once you're in, you can't get out. Okay, let's move on to Culture Corner.
Quick one. Nick's close personal friend, Josh Brown, who runs a podcast for advisors in the US called The Compound. I believe it's called Compound and Friends, something like that.
He runs about 20 podcasts.
Yeah, he does. But he did, as has been mentioned already on this conversation, he's very much part of the Future Proof Festival in California. And as part of that, I saw he interviewed, we've also mentioned this guy before, Peter Mallouk, Creative Wealth Planning in Kansas City. It's a great interview. I never tire of hearing Peter Mallouk. He's very modest, very humble. His firm is at over $300 billion in assets under management. So like nearly double the size of St. James's Place in this country. And they're an independent, fee-based, use low-cost index. I believe they're a big dimensional user as well, but that's what they do. So, don't tell me you can't scale.
Financial planning led, Alan.
Proper financial
planning. Scale, yeah.
They have done something like 37% compound annual growth for the last decade. I think it's just extraordinary what he says, and he just seems quite a humble guy, quite down to earth, and he just explains a lot of how he's done it. He talks about the metrics that he tracks. He doesn't really like, as I don't really love, AUM as a measure, because he was just making the point about helping families. We just want to help more and more families, but AUM is a measure that the industry focuses on. But it's 37 minutes long, well worth listening to or watching, because he's full of little gems, and there's wisdom for all of us, whether you're new to the business or you've been doing this stuff for decades. It's excellent, I would suggest.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep, love Peter Mallouk, as does a long-time listener to the show and friend of ours, Sam Slomer. So, Sam, if you're listening to this, there's your Peter Mallouk reference for the episode 54 of Trap. Okay, yes, referring back to a book that Storyteller mentioned earlier, David Baker's Secret Tradecraft of Elite Advisors. It's not directly written to financial advisory people or financial advisory firms, but the lessons you read from the book can be easily used in building a really good financial advisory process. And as Alan mentioned earlier, you want to be the person that tells the truth. You do not want to be an order taker in this business. And if you get nothing else from this book, get that. But he writes in a very, very direct, pithy style. He's American, but he's got some of the Brett Davidson in him and in the way he writes. So I would suggest you get The Secret Tradecraft of Elite Advisors. And then I've got two, I'm going to very quickly. Rory Sutherland, who is, of course, a close personal friend of the show. His podcast, he had Samson's head of marketing in Europe, a guy called Benjamin Braun, on his show recently. And it was really, really interesting interview. Benjamin Braun's not like your typical high-ranking C-suite executive. He's very it makes sense. He's entertaining. And this is how good he was as a speaker and how good he was listened to. Rory didn't dominate him in terms of how much time Rory was speaking for. So listen to that. There's a link to that in the so-called show notes.
Okay, this is my book recommendation. This is from Robert Greene. I listened to this book originally called The Laws of Human Nature, but I bought it online the other day, and it's a slight tweak to the title, The Concise Laws of Human Nature. So the book is actually half the size. This is like the size of an iPhone. I quite like these books. I've gone back to physical books, and the smaller the better. So if anyone is listening to this and has got any recommendations for small books that are physical, concise,
colour in.
Yeah, they've got a great set of crayons with it.
Yeah,
please do let me know.
I think your 4-year-old twins have got some books, some small books that you could read as well.
It's brilliant. I love these books. They're just like so handy. Anyways, if anyone
It's
can
like the
recommend
Austin Kleon ones, isn't it? Show your work.
Yeah.
They're little A6.
Are they all quite small?
Is
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
A6.
Dinky.
Yeah. Anyone got any recommendations for A6 books? Let me know. Thank you, Carl.
You can stack them in your IKEA wardrobe. Yes, sorry, go on.
almost embarrassed to say that I've only just finished The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Here's the thing, right? I don't know what bias got into my head that I decided I didn't like Morgan Housel. I would like to publicly apologize to Morgan Housel. The book is absolutely superb. So good, in fact, that I bought a few hard copies to give to clients. If you haven't, like me, and you're embarrassing yourself like me that you haven't read it yet and you're in financial planning, then you need to go and get it, please. It's superb.
It's brilliant,
Superb.
yeah.
It's really
20 chapters, which is great. 20 amazing
really
stories. Yeah, it's really good.
And
Yeah.
it would be fair to say that Morgan Housel is a close personal friend of Andy and I. Isn't that right? we almost went
five in the
just.
show.
That's a whole other story.
We'll move on from that story, yeah.
Yeah, I think close and personal. I think actually friend is pushing on all three counts. But there you go. He's a very well-regarded writer. I'm not totally... He looks a bit like, for those who don't know, if you never see Andy Kaufman and Morgan Housel in the same room at the same time, he looks like Lafka of Taxi. There you go. That's who Morgan Housel resembles. Okay, dear Trappist, that is... Now, Andy, I'm going to do my closing spiel now, so do you want to talk over me halfway through it? As per normal? Okay, great stuff. That's a wrap for this episode, dear Trappist. Thank you for your precious time and input to the show. Please do leave a rating on iTunes or whatever app you can that lets you leave a rating. 6 out of 5 stars is a minimum, you know it. Also, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll get an annoying notification on your device of choice whenever a fresh part of Trap drops out of the sluice. But until the next episode, Trappists, it's adios, take care out there, and we'll see you on the other side. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all. All right. What's that book?